Okay, we are back with you with our Bible study, Empowerment Faith Kingdom Church, and we're sorry about that, but we're trying to provide quality. All right, so we're going to get right into this. I did a brief introduction on the last video. That's probably deleted, so we're going to do it on this one. We're talking about revelation of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, or the Moedib, the set appointed time, the Holy Week of Unleavened Bread. Now, let me give you this right here. Unleavened bread began at twilight on the 14th of Nisan, at twilight. What is twilight? The passing of the days. So that means that if the unleavened bread began then, that also lets us know that everything else that happened after that is a part of unleavened bread. That includes the resurrection, first fruit giving, counting of the Omer, all took place during unleavened bread. You also can put in the crucifixion of Yeshua, because that took place on day of preparation on the 14th of Nisan. Remember, he was on the cross at 3 p.m. That's when he said it's finished. And 3 to 6 is considered twilight, or the passing of the days. So unleavened bread began on the 14th of Nisan at twilight, meaning that death, burial, resurrection, all of it took place during unleavened bread. Now, tradition, Mark 7:13 tells us that tradition calls the word of Elohim to be of none effect. What tradition? During this time, Easter have taken over. During this time, Resurrection Sunday have taken over. And I don't hear too much talking about unleavened bread. Although everything that I just mentioned, for the exception of Easter and Sunday, the resurrection took place during unleavened bread. So we want to give you knowledge, that you have more information by which you make your decisions, so you will be at least accountable to truth and not to tradition. The only reason most of the church don't acknowledge or celebrate unleavened bread is because of replacement theology and tradition. Again, Yeshua said himself, your tradition, our tradition, calls his word to be of non-effect. Regarding also, that applies regarding the set times. Now, of course, you know, lies have been told in the past, that's for the Jews only, and it's not for us today, and blah, blah, blah. But you can't find it in the scripture. Man have manipulated, twisted things around to wrap everything around the religious system. Religion is a system. Everything is wrapped around that. Over in the book of Hazan Revelation, the scripture tells us about a harlot, which is the false church sitting on a beast, which is government. And that harlot also is primarily religion. So religion actually is controlling government and commerce. We think it's the other way around, but it isn't. All right. So I don't want to get too far into that, because I definitely want to deal with this unleavened bread. All right. So we're going to, if you may be able to see what our PowerPoint here on the screen, you may be able to see it, you know, and you may not. I think it's on there, and we are posting notes also. So let's get into this. So unleavened bread is for the kingdom church today, not the religious church or the religious system. Religious system is governed by tradition. Easter is a Gentile tradition, you know, and that have overshadowed and just put in the back unleavened bread. But after we give you this knowledge tonight, hopefully you'll be able to make a better decision about what we are doing and when we are doing it. All right, so let's look at this. The keys of the kingdom. This is what we need to get a hold to. The keys of the kingdom are the precepts, the principles, the precepts, laws, and systems by which the kingdom function. Remember, Yeshua only taught and preached the kingdom. He came to establish the kingdom. He never came to establish religion. He did not come, to establish Christianity. He came to establish the kingdom. And what he started, you know, the Gentiles got into it, and Rome got into it, and Greeks got into it. And now you have this religion that's benefiting certain people. And then 2 Timothy 2:15, and this is New English translation. I want to read that. 2 Timothy 2:15 tells us, make every effort to present yourself before Elohim God as a proven worker who does not need to be ashamed, teaching the message of the truth accurately. And that applies to everyone who say that they are born again. Moving on. Here are the fours. I hit this last time we met. 4 questions all Christians should ask themselves when Elohim tells them to do anything. What to do, when to do it, where to do it, and how to do it. Remember those 4 questions. Now, the authority of the word prevails in all things. And we just mentioned Mark 7:13, Yeshua, who was the Lord over. He is the Passover lamb. And only he have authority to change in a date or days. And only thing he didn't change Passover because they kept the Seder. He had a early Seder, whereas he celebrated the new covenant that he would bring into. He said, this is my body, which is broken for you, my blood, which is shed. He did that during the early Seder or the communion meal that they had. And he was when he said that, he had the 3rd cup in his hand, which is a cup of redemption. All right. And that's another teaching. But that's a part of knowledge and understanding. So let's get in here and deal with unleavened bread. Now, what I want to do first is I want to go here and give you some word meaning. So I'm going to skip. Let me, I'll go and catch this. Let's do it like this. Let me go back one. All right. Now, Nisan the 14th through the 21st is the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And Leviticus 23:6, Exodus 12 and 17. Let's look at that. Let's look at Leviticus 23. Leviticus 23. So you have to turn there because I don't have that rope for you. All right. And he said, this Leviticus 23. And we're going to begin reading at verse 4. Now, I got verse 6 up here, but we're going to start at verse 4. These are the feasts. And remember, the word feast is the Hebrew word moedim. Moedim, and it means divine appointed times. You will first see that word in Genesis 1:14 when he said the sun and the moons and the celestial beings, they are set for signs and seasons. Okay, of course, you know that's an English translation. The original Hebrew rendering is they're set for the olive tav, who is Yeshua. He said, I am the olive tav, and divine appointed dates. That word seasons is the Hebrew word moedib, and signs is the Hebrew word olive vav tav ot. Yeshua said, I am the olive and the tav. So these are set divine appointed times that Yeshua himself appointed. All right. So these are the feasts of Moedib of Yahweh, holy convocations which you shall proclaim at their appointed times. On the 14th day of the first month, which is Nisan or Abib, at twilight, I mentioned that earlier, is Yahweh's Passover. You see that? Twilight, letting us know between the going out of the 14th into the 15th, that's twilight. He said that's Yahweh's Passover. And on the 15th day of the same month is the Feast of Unleavened Bread. But watch this now. It's Feast of Unleavened Bread. So Passover was at twilight, the passing of the days. Unleavened bread occurred at the same time because they were eating unleavened bread during Passover. Okay, here it is. And on the 15th of the same month is the Feast of Unleavened Bread to Yahweh, not to the Jews, but to Yahweh. 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. On the first day you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work on it, but you shall offer an offering made by fire to Yahweh for 7 days. The 7 days shall be a holy convocation, and you shall do no customary work. Now we're going to look at another one here in Exodus. Let's look at Exodus 12 and 17. Look at Exodus 12 and 17. Exodus 12 and 17. All right. And we still just establishing the initial where Passover unleavened bread. Where did it start? It started here in Exodus 12 and 17. And I wanted to show you in another passage over in Leviticus. You also find it in Numbers and other places. So Exodus 12 and 17, he says, so you shall observe. Remember, you shall observe the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Now, the Feast of is italicized. He simply said, you shall observe unleavened bread, Messiah, unleavened bread. For on this day I will have brought your armies out of the land of Egypt. Therefore, you shall observe this day throughout your generations as an everlasting ordinance. In the first month, which is Nisan or Abib, we're in Nisan now, He didn't say April. He didn't say March, when no Gregorian calendar didn't exist in this time, or when the Father was dealing with his people. On the 14th day of the month at evening, you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month at evening. For 7 days, no leaven shall be found in your houses, since whoever eats what is leavened, that same person shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel. Whether he is a stranger or a native of the land, you shall eat nothing leavened. In all your dwellings, you shall eat unleavened bread. All right, so here are two passages dealing with the same thing, talking about this 7-day period of unleavened bread. And you see how it started at twilight on the 14th of Nisan. All right, so we want to point that out. Now, let's look at Ezra 6 and 22, because this is a joyous time. And I'm going to show you in a minute, it's also a time of not compromising, or what I call a time of consecration, separation from the world and traditions. Now, Ezra 6 and 22 says, and they shall keep the feast of unleavened bread 7 days with joy. Notice he said with joy, for Yahweh made them joyful and turned the heart of the king of the Assyria toward them to strengthen their hands in the work of the house of Elohim, the El, or God of Israel. Now you see, it's with joy, and it's a joyous thing for any believing, kingdom-minded Christian to do things that please the Father. It's a joy to separate from the world. It's a joy to stop compromising. There's nothing sorrowful about that. All right, now let's look at another verse. We're just getting some foundational scriptures here concerning this week of unleavened bread. Of course, religion and tradition, everything stopped on Resurrection Sunday. Everything stopped, but it's not accurate, because resurrection is a part, again, of unleavened bread. First fruits on the 16th of Nisan is a part of the celebration of unleavened bread. And I'm going to give you the meaning for unleavened bread in a minute, but I want to read these other passages right quick here. All right, 1 Corinthians 5 and 8. Therefore, here we go. This is the Apostle Sheol. I mentioned the original names. Names were changed, just the same reason that the Judeans and the other African Hebrew Jews who were brought over here on the boats, and those other Africans brought on the boats, their name was changed because they were in bondage to another nation. So now you can see easily how that colonization have affected the translation of the scriptures. If you don't study, you don't even know the original names of nobody. You just got English names. All right. He said, therefore, this is Sheol. In the Messianic scriptures called the New Testament, he is talking to the church, the kingdom-minded church. Now, if he was to say this to the church today, people would still have Easter baskets and looking for Easter eggs on Easter Sunday. They still be doing the same thing because of tradition. But he said, therefore, let us keep the feast or the Moedim, not with old leaven, nor with the leaven of malice and wickedness. And that's all this tradition and paganism, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. So I just want to show you in the scripture where right there he said to do it. All right, and look at Acts 26. But we sailed away from Philippi after the day of unleavened bread, and in 5 days joined them at Troas, where we stayed 7 days. Here's the Apostle Sheol talking again. They kept the word. They never changed anything. They understood that. And we are supposed to do what they did prior to tradition, paganism, the Romans and the Greeks getting in and contaminating the scriptures. That's what they did. They contaminated through traditions and the translations and colonization. All right. So now let's look at the meaning of unleavened bread. All right. And we see here, I got my notes. You see this up here. Passover, eating with unleavened bread, and when it occurred. I just went over all of that. Now I'm going to show you something else that's very powerful. We're going to look at when was this word first used, unleavened bread? And it's the Hebrew word matzah. And you see it up here on the screen in the back, spelled mem, sadi, high. Now, of course, you know, high means to look into heaven for revelation, or for heaven to reveal revelation in the earth. Heaven, revelation of heaven, or heaven revealing its purpose in the earth. All right. And then Sati means to have a strong desire and be established or connected to this strong desire. And of course, Mem, here we have the life-giving spirit, supernatural power in the realm of the spirit. That Mem, Yeshua, is the one that gives living water. So here's the one who gives living water. His strong desire he reveals in unleavened bread. His desire, what he wants, and the life that he gives is revealed on unleavened bread. That's why it's so important to understand the resurrection took place during when? Unleavened bread, not Passover, unleavened bread, not Resurrection Sunday, unleavened bread. The resurrection took place during unleavened bread. All right, now. All right, so that's very powerful, and I want to make sure we get that. So Mazeo. Now here's a translated. Here's the meaning that's given by definition out of one of the lexicons. Now watch this right here. Remember, I just gave you what each letter word mean. Keys of Revelation. I got a book ready to put it out, and I also teach these classes to learn how to study in the original language and get these other meanings. But of course, remember, we said life-giving spirit, massive power of life-giving spirit and a strong desire, and is revealed a revelation of heaven. All right, now here we go. In the sense of greediness, devouring for sweetness. That's what our lexicon give the meaning. All right, in the sense of greedily devouring for sweetness, and there is that. You see this hunger, this craving, or this strong desire, but it's for sweetness. Now I'm going to tell you what he's talking about. Look at Exodus 29 and 41. Now Yeshua, he is the one who gives life. He is the spirit of life. You know, in Yochanan, called John 7:37, even during his birthday, which was during the Moedib of Tabernacle, or the Feast of Tabernacle, when he cried out and said, if any man thirst, let him come unto me and drink. Out of his belly flow what? Rivers of living water. He is the source of living waters. So watch this. The source of living water, talking about Messiah, what he revealed, what his strong desire is. He have a hunger, a thirst. He have a passion to devour sweetness. And what type of sweetness is talking about? Exodus 29 and 41. Now watch this right here. This word sweet is a aroma. Now, and the other lambs you shall offer at twilight, and you shall offer you shall offer with it the grain offering and the drink offering as in the morning for a what? Sweet aroma, an offering made by fire to Yahweh. You see that? So when you're talking about sweetness, you're talking about an aroma that goes unto him as an offering of worship unto him. This sweetness, and this what this Mazeo, unleavened bread, mean is talking about sweet bread, which is an aroma of worship unto him. You know, now tradition will never teach that, never show you that. And just by getting that piece of information right there, we can see what he desires. And being Messiah, what he desired, that sweet aroma, that offering unto him. And that offering unto him, we're going to see in a minute, is for the kingdom citizens to be representatives of him without any contamination, influence, or compromise with the world. We just gotta get this. All right, now let's look at this right here. Let's look at when this word is first used. It's first used in Genesis 19 and 3. Genesis 19 and 3. Let's go there. Genesis 19 and 3. And matter of fact, let's just begin reading at verse 1. Let's look at this word, this unleavened bread again, which is a what? Sweet aroma unto Yahweh. All right. Now 19 says, now the two angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. When Lot saw them, he rose to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. He said, hear now, my lords, please. All right. Hear now, my lords, or Adonai, please turn into your servant's house and spend the night and wash your feet. Then you may rise early in the morning and go your way. And they said, no, but we will spend the night in the open square. These were the angels, and Yeshua was with them. He was the third angel that had already previously talked to Abraham. They had came to bring judgment on Sodom and Gomorrah because of the perverseness, homosexuality, and all the stuff that was going on in Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, verse 3 says, but he insisted strongly. So they turned in to him and entered his house. Then he made them a feast and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. You see, the angels ate unleavened bread. So the first time you see this word used here in the book of Genesis, angels are eating unleavened bread. And we know now that's an aroma, a sweet aroma that the Messiah desires. So the angels that he came with, they went ahead and to complete their assignment. But look, Lot had enough sense to know what to prepare for them, which he learned from Abraham. So angels ate unleavened bread. Now, and in Numbers 6 and 13, unleavened bread, this sweet aroma, also was an offering of the Nazarite. Now, this is the law or Torah of the law of the Nazarite. When the days of his separation are fulfilled, he shall be brought to the door of the tabernacle of meeting. Let me continue, of meeting. And he shall present his offering to Yahweh, one male lamb in his first year without blemish as a burnt offering, one ewe lamb in his first year without blemish, and a sin offering, one ram without blemish, and a peace offering, a basket of unleavened bread. Do you see that? A basket of unleavened bread. And that was brought, that has to do with the Nazarite offering, making a Nazarite vow to dedicate that person entire life in service of Yahweh. Very powerful. You're seeing it now. Well, we haven't been hearing about unleavened bread, but we see it in the scriptures how important it is now. All right, now let's look at Judges 6 and 20. We're going to see it again. This particular angel actually is Yeshua himself, and I'm going to read enough to prove that to you. All right, now Judges 6 and 20. All right. Now, let's go at verse 19. So Gideon went in and prepared a young goat and unleavened bread from an ephah of flour. The meat he put in a basket, and he put in broth in a pot for y'all non-meat eaters. And he brought them out to him under the terebinth tree and presented it to them. He presented this to an angel, actually presented to Yeshua himself. And the angel of Yahweh said to him, take the meat and the unleavened bread, here it is again, lay them on the rock and pour out the broth. And he did so. Then the angel of Yahweh put out the end of the staff that was in his hand and touched the meat and the unleavened bread, and fire rose out of the rock and consumed the meat and the unleavened bread. And the angel of Yahweh departed out of his sight. He went up. Yeshua traveled up back into heaven through this portal, because of this aroma, and what he desired was presented to him. He had finished his assignment talking to Gideon. Now watch this. Now Gideon perceived that he was the angel of Yahweh. So Gideon said, alas, oh, Adonai El. Now this time he said Adonai, the word Lord there's Adonai Elohim. For I have seen the angel of Yahweh face to face. And then Yahweh said to him, peace be with you. Do not fear. You shall not die. Because, remember, they said if you was to look on his face, death would certainly take place. But he said, you won't die. That's letting us know this was Yeshua, God himself, Elohim himself, that Gideon, this appearing in this angel. So Gideon built an altar there to Yahweh and called it the Lord is peace. To this day, it is still in Operiah of the Abazirites. Now, the Lord is peace. Shalom. Yahweh Shalom. All right. You see here, unleavened bread is here again. I'm just showing you in scripture so we can understand the importance of unleavened bread. It's a sweet aroma. It has to do with worship. Now, unleavened bread cakes were offered in sacrifice when Aaron and his son were consecrated to the priesthood. Consecration. this unleavened bread again. It's the reason why he instituted the feast, the celebration of unleavened bread. This all about a sweet aroma going up to him. And nothing is more sweeter to him to see his people in the earth completely separated and not tied to tradition and religion. All right, tradition and religion. So I want to share that with you there. Now let's go down a little further here, and we're going to deal with something else in terms of compromising. Now, compromising, because unleavened bread, when you put leaven in bread, leaven just takes over and it causes it to rise and to expand, but it loses sweetness. So leaven is a type of compromising and allowing sin to come in, but we can't mix the sacred. We can't mix the secular with the sacred. That's a terrible thing to do, to even attempt to mix this secular with the sacred. Sacred. Let me take a drink here. Pause. So we're getting the concept, unleavened bread, a sweet aroma. Very important that we get this, because during this time every year you still have what I call deceived Christians who are tied to the religious system and tradition. I believe most of it because of lack of knowledge. The other part is because of what Yeshua said himself. The tradition of man calls the word of Elohim to be of none effect, because there's too much knowledge out here for us to look over it any longer. Now let's look at 1 Corinthians 10 and 20. This is point number 1. We're dealing with this unleavened bread, or getting the leaven out. Now we see we don't need anything that's bitter mixing in, and we see that leaven contaminates and it spreads just like sin does. All right, 1 Corinthians 10 and 20. 1 Corinthians 10 and 20. Now, let's read. Hopefully I'm not moving too quick. Rather that the things which the Gentiles, now the Gentiles are the seed of Japhet. Read Genesis chapter 10. The Gentiles are the seed of Japhet. And Easter, Christmas, Halloween, all these pagan days are European pagan days. All of them. And they are tradition, and is their religion, period. And they gathered and contaminate the church with it. All right. So rather that the things with the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to demons and not to Elohim. See, and even Easter, Esther, Isis, they the same people. Over in Kings, he told the people, don't run behind Esther. Don't do that. But it's still happening. All right. Sacrifice to demons and not to Elohim. I do not want you to have fellowship with demons. You cannot drink the cup of Yahweh and the cup of demons. You cannot partake of the Lord's table and of the table of demons. Or do we provoke the Lord to jealousy? Are we stronger than him? And people just continue to do it. But what we're going to do with this word right here, we giving knowledge of the kingdom. This is the king's law. This is his way of doing things. This is how he wants things done. You don't see anything in here about God understand. And yeah, we all sinners, and all these religious band-aids just put over this festering cancer called sin that's running rapid through the church even today, with all the knowledge and stuff like that going on. All right, now let's look at another one. 1 John 2 and 15 through 17. He says this is getting 11 out here. And he said, let's keep the feast, keep this divine appointed time, not by Constantine, not by the Gregorian calendar, but by what Lord, or another word for Lord is owner, or what the owner said himself and when to do it, and gave specific instructions. He said, do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, here we go, the lust of the flesh, lust of the eye, pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world. And the world is passing away and the lust of it. But he who does the will of Elohim, God, abides forever. Just saying a person is a Christian don't mean that they are going to abide forever with the Father. Just saying, Jesus, you are my Lord, and I believe, and then go through the confession and never change a lifestyle, still remain friends of the world. He said that ain't going to cut it. Keeping the traditions of man, keeping these pagan holidays and all of this stuff, that's all a part of the world or the religious system that has been established. All right, now let's look at 1 John 5:19. He says, we know that we are of Elohim, God, and the whole world lies under the sway of the wicked one. Satan is the source of man traditions and religious activities. Satan is the source. Satan is a religious spirit. What is a religious spirit? Religion is a person's self view or of divinity and who we personally put above or superior above us. Now, if it's not the word, then we shouldn't be doing it. All right. And then look at James 4:4. He said, adulterers and adulterers, men and women, male and female, do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity against Elohim? Whoever therefore wants to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of Elohim. But we want to sing songs with them, not we, just say religious Christians. And religious Christians will do that. They'll sing songs with them. They'll dance with them. They'll do their dances. They'll do it in the youth church. They just all kind of stuff going on that has nothing to do with dominion and aligning ourselves in position with the righteousness that Yeshua made available to us. All this other stuff talking about we need to attract people and add souls, that's religion. It has nothing to do with the kingdom. Now, here's the source of it, a doctrine that has really promoted leaven, in the church. And it's the doctrine of Balaam. Now, and that's point number 2, believing the teaching of Balaam. Now, this is going to get up in there. You might get, a little something. Might add some extra deodorant or go get some foot powder or something like that, because it's really, we getting ready to get ready to tear into something. I see you, baby. I think, yeah. All right. Now, believing the teaching of Balaam and the Nicolaitans, both Yeshua hated. He hated both of them. I said hated. Well, God is love. No, he hated he is love, but not the type of love we think, that put up with everything and everybody. You do what the heck you want to do, come up with your own laws, your own ways, just do all type of crazy stuff. This stuff just totally out of control. I mean, even a leader of our nation now, everybody say, yeah, that's a religious Christian. It's not a kingdom Christian. There's a difference between the two. All right. Now, what I said, doctrine of, okay, let's go to this next one. All right. And that will be the teaching of Balaam. Let's look at the teaching of Balaam and see what we're talking about here. And you're going to find this over in Revelation. Now, here's Balaam teaching. He tried to introduce, and he was successful in it, into the church a false freedom that is lasciviousness, a false freedom. Now we all free, do what we want to do, make our own laws, set our own days. We free. We're not in abundance. That's the teaching of Balaam. Now watch this. He knew Balaam, if he could subvert their morals, and morals is out the window in America, you know that, and in the religious Christian churches out the window too, Elohim would withdraw his blessing by leading Israel to eat meat offered to idols and to have sexual intercourse with pagans to whom they were not married. That's number 25, 1-3. You should check that out. Meat offered to idols. That's what Shale was talking about in 1 Corinthians 10. All right. Giving them money, time, and receiving the entertainment and emotional feel good from the things of the world. They strictly identify with that. They strictly identify with that idol, man, woman, and their symbols. You got all kind of symbols out here. And, of course, the fashion industry, the music industry, the gospel music industry, whatever industry it is that, people half naked and you can't tell no different, singers getting up, grinding and cutting and bucking, just like the word. Ain't no difference. This is a result of teaching. Teaching is doctrine. Doctrine is what you accept as being truth, and doctrine determines character, behavior, and destiny. People act and behave the way they behave as a result of teaching. And then you have to bring in culture, because culture is taught purposely. Culture is a set of behaviors, patterns, lifestyle, way people live. Whoever control the minds control the culture. Whoever control the culture can create whatever culture they want to. My wife and I, we was looking at something, a vehicle they was advertising. I said, man, that car looked like a train. That's ugly. But because the media control the culture, they can create something ugly and say, you buy this and pay a lot of money for it. And people do it. Why? Because the culture, those who are controlling the culture are in control of the culture. And as kingdom citizens, our assignment actually is to culturalize the earth with the kingdom. She'll get that in a minute. Is to culturalize the earth with the kingdom. All right, now let's look at the teaching of the Nicolaitans. Thank you, baby. Teaching of the Nicolaitans. All right, now here we go. The teaching of the Nicolaitans. You'll find this over in the book of Revelations, beginning in chapter 2, when he was writing those 7 letters to the church in that area. They say in Asia Minor, but in that whole area that was north of Africa. And by the way, you had Africans all up in there also. All right, now teaching of Nicolaitans. Now, Nicolaitans mean conqueror of the people. Conqueror of the people is the Greek version of Balaam. Here the Greeks are again. The Greek version of Balaam, from the Hebrew word Balaam, meaning destroyer of the people. See, leaven is a destroyer, compromise, freedom, lasciviousness, doing whatever, not abiding by the word, saying the Old Testament past and all this kind of stuff. And we writing our own and blah, 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 all this crazy stuff that's out here. All right. So let me continue to read. Destroyer of the people. The true sense of Nicolaitans, they are not a sect, but professing. But I didn't say real ones, but professing. I'm going to throw the word in here, religious, traditional Christians who, like Balaam of old, tried to introduce into the church a false freedom. That is lasciviousness. The word Nicolaitans is the equivalent of the word democracy. Did y'all know that? That the word is they the same. They are the same. And it means the people rule, not the king rule. The people rule. Again, not the king rule, but the people rule. The kingdom of Elohim is theocratic, in which Elohim rules, and he rules all by himself alone. So I want to just show you that area here and the source of this defilement that's running in people's mind and have programmed people's minds to think the way that they think, and take one big name or somebody with a lot of people will say something against this and they'll believe it with all the information, the truth I just shared, all the knowledge in the scripture I just shared, and they'll come up with something else and spend weeks trying to undo or unteach the word of the Father. I see it, baby. I got a few minutes. And undo. Okay. And undo what the Father has taught. And that should never be like that, period. All right. So I just want to share that with you concerning the feast, or the Moadib of unleavened bread, Masea, sweet aroma. This whole week, hey, make a decision. Just stop playing games. Make a decision. I'm switching from going in 2 directions. How long you gonna halt between 2 opinions? And I'm going in that direction. I'm not gonna drink beer and get drunk, cuss, holler like a sailor this weekend, jump up and sing in the choir. So I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going the way of the King. He owns me. He owns my heart. And I'm not gonna continue to go on the way I'm going. I'm pulling away, breaking away from all this paganism. I'm breaking away from all this tradition, and I'm going to get with the word, and lives are actually better as a result of it. So I'm going to stop right there, and we appreciate you so much. And of course, you know, this week I'll be doing certain segments. I want to just share you some concepts, or the origination of the unleavened bread, or the sweet aroma that the Messiah desires. So we appreciate you so much. Be blessed, be empowered, be kingdom minded. Remember, we are citizens of the kingdom. I'm believing now that this word will touch hearts, change lives, change minds, and do what the Father wants done. Remember, you can share the video. And for all of our congregation, we're going to switch over to our partners only page, and we're going to share some more with you then. So if you're on, you know what to do. We're going to stop this streaming here, and we go over to our partner page. Elohim bless you. Shalom.